On. It is Monday, slightly dreary, all the more reason to have Mental Health Monday, in my opinion. It is Monday, December 16th, in the height of the holiday. What word am I looking for? Flurry? I don't know. Go with it. It's
Frenzy.
warm outside, though, so it's kind of misty, but that's all right. I'm Mayor Chris Jensen, Noblesville, Indiana. Welcome to another edition of Mental Health Monday here. I am joined once again by my hero, Kristen Boyce, the owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling. Good morning, Kristen.
Good morning, Mayor Jensen. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so excited Patrick's joining us today.
Yes, speaking of Patrick Probst, the executive director of Serve Noblesville, just a true staple in the community and somebody who can talk to us a little bit about service and how that can help this time of year. So, Patrick, welcome to Mental Health Monday.
Thanks. Great to be here. I've tuned in many times, first time guest. Is that how it goes?
A long time listener, first time guest. I love it. Yeah, if you listen to Mental Health Monday long enough, we'll have you on as a guest, folks. So that's what Patrick is here to teach you about a little bit today. So, no, I'm excited about this. Obviously, next week is Christmas. There's a lot of emotions going on around the holiday. There's a lot of emotions around the weather. There's just a lot of emotions around a lot of things right now. Certainly in Noblesville, I know that's across the world, and we know we have viewers from across the world. So I'm honored to get this kicked off here today. We're going to talk a lot about service, around dealing with holiday pressures, around some seasonal depression. Kristen Boyce can really lead us through just about anything. So that's why we're so glad to have this conversation. That's a lot of pressure to put on you. Sorry, Kristen. But we'll just start with a low-hanging fruit softball. We need to do some square breathing before we get started with any serious conversation, right?
Yes, we do. Here's what I want to say to everybody. You matter, you're important, and you're loved, and you're enough. And this season can bring up so much grief and sadness and anger and fear and all of the emotions. And the number one thing we want to work on is centering ourselves. So we're leading with centered messages, and our bodies are regulated. So whenever you feel triggered, which we all do, okay, we want to come back to regulate your nervous system. So we're going to focus on our breath. We put our feet on the floor. This helps ground us in the present moment. So we're not focused on the past. We're not focused on the future. We're focused on right here and now. So we're going to inhale through our nose for 4. We're going to hold for 4. And the key is a slow exhale out your mouth. And almost like you're cooling soup or cooling a cookie if you're working with kids. And what this does is it helps your nervous system really come back from escalation to de-escalation. So let's practice together. Feet on the floor, a deep, big inhale through your nose. Hold, and then a slow exhale out your mouth. Just kind of do a check-in. Notice how you feel. Let's do one more deep inhale through your nose. And release all that tension and tightness. Just set an intention to be present in this moment, to come back to your breath. If you get triggered or activated or something brings up an emotion, that's okay. Come back to your breath, feel your feet on the floor, and recenter.
Awesome. Again, I do a lot of this all the time. Try to get my kids to do it as well. It's really important, especially this time of year, to just slow down for a second, breathe, which seems like such an easy function, but if you're intentional, it can be a game changer for you. So, hey, before I turn it back over to you guys to talk about this season and then also pivoting to service, I just want to say, if anyone has any questions, Kathy Hines has already said Merry Christmas in the chat. I love her. Feel free to chime in the chat with any questions specifically to this topic, or if there's something that we need to run down for you later, we can do that too. Or if you just want to say hi in the chat, that's welcome too. So we appreciate you joining us today. With that, Kristen, I'm going to tee it back over to you to kind of engage in this dialogue.
Okay, Patrick, tell us about Serve Noblesville first, so folks know what it is.
Sure.
And your role in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Serve Noblesville's it's been around for a while in the community. We started back in kind of 2012. It just was a collaboration of a number of churches and youth pastors that wanted to provide an opportunity for local service for our students and families. Slowly, it began to pick up recognition from other businesses and organizations in the community. In 2018, we became a full nonprofit to operate independently to make it a little bit easier for some of those community partnerships. Most people know us for our Serve Week. It is certainly our flagship program. It's the largest single volunteer service event in Hamilton County, which we're proud to host. Where we mobilize about 1,000 volunteers over 4 days on hundreds of projects, about 100 projects throughout Hamilton County. But we do more than that as well. We also we host Fun Fest, which stands for Food, Unity, and Neighbors. It's the community's cultural celebration where we bring the story and the culture of Noblesville's past history, as well as the quickly changing culture and history that is moving into our community, and bring those all together and make sure that all of our neighbors have a place to be seen and celebrated, and that story to be told for all of our residents, past and present, on what makes our community great. And then the other program that we've had as a staple has been Come Together Week, where we invite the community to host parties. It's a really difficult event to invite the community to throw parties. Host gatherings, celebrations, invite the business community to celebrate their employee staff or find some creative way to connect with the community. And that's all about just reducing isolation, creating connection. Again, those produce and improve mental health. We also see that as that happens, intergenerational, that's a proven success for generational success among younger people. And then last year we launched a new program called Charming Noblesville that has 3 new initiatives. Impact Noblesville, which is a citywide website that hosts volunteer opportunities for any nonprofit. Neighbors can create an individual profile so that they can learn about volunteer opportunities 24/7 all year. They can also become fans of their favorite nonprofits that are registered on there. And it's also a great place for businesses to find opportunities to serve locally without having to hunt and search for the nonprofit that may have something that aligns with their schedule. And then the other 2 initiatives are focused on historic downtown Noblesville. We have the largest historic area in Hamilton County. We want to make sure that we're preserving that. And so we've got 6.5 miles on the eastern side of the river, more on the western, but we're really starting with focusing on the eastern side. And so we've got a neighborhood beautification and neighborhood activation. We've got 12 historic neighborhoods that we want to bring back to life on that historic side. We want to give them a sense of identity and purpose, connecting neighbors and businesses in those neighborhoods. Then we also want to create beautification. We've started a mural walkway in downtown Noblesville. We currently have 12. Eventually, that'll be about a 3.5-mile walkway for people to enjoy just beauty and the arts in the historic downtown. We want to plant flowering trees throughout our historic downtown so that Noblesville is a flowering city. I don't know of too many Midwest flowering cities, and I think it'd be really beautiful for us right before Peony Festival for people to also come to town to also see just the city in full bloom. And so we've got a number of different initiatives. We launched that last year. We looked getting that in full gear this year. But really, the goal of Serve Noblesville is about connecting people. Regardless of all the programs we do, all of our programming is how do we get neighbors connected to one another, get them to meet one another in ways that are fun, interesting, and benefit one another.
You've got some really significant things people can get involved with.
Yes.
Let's talk about the holidays, volunteerism, depression, anxiety, isolation. We're seeing a lot of loneliness and isolation. This is a really hard time for folks. They're either grieving, they might be going through loss, they might be feeling lonely. And how does volunteering help with mental health? Yeah,
there's a number of ways. Volunteering gets you, it kind of gets you out of your headspace. The daylight savings time, it's so dark so early. It's easy for me at 5:30 when it's dark outside to be like, okay, I want to shut the day down. And so it's easier for me to spend more time if I'm not aware of what's going on, more time to just be at home and to be kind of cut off from what's going on in the community around me. And certainly it's okay to take a break and stay home and get rest. But I know I do have to be intentional about staying engaged with others. And volunteering is a great way to do that because it puts your mind in a certain posture that helps to kind of keep kind of that, what I say is stinking thinking, kind of keep that at bay. And so in volunteering, you're focused on the other. So you get out of your own ruminations, your own headspace, and you naturally kind of become curious or compassionate or aware of what is going on in others' lives. That's good for emotional intelligence. It's good for you to just recognize, kind of take a survey of kind of where your own life is, and you kind of come to learn to appreciate kind of your own status of what's going on. It also reduces chemically. It reduces all the good chemicals. They used to call it, I think, the helper's high when you volunteered, that you kind of got this boost of just confidence. Feels good to help someone. Gives you a good sense of self-worth. And so it just, all those things stacked up on top of each other are just beneficial. It also gives you a place in connection of community identity, a sense of place of I now own this place because I have some ownership here because I've served here, or I've served the community here, and so I have a sense of belonging. I've created a sense of us in our own community.
I think it gives you purpose and meaning. I think a lot of people feel like, why am I here? Like, what's the point of me being here? Like, what is my purpose? I feel lost. And why, do I even matter? And
Sure.
I think this can really help people feel like they have a purpose and are finding meaning in their life. And
Absolutely.
how do you help people step out of their comfort zone? Because some people are like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. I'm scared to go. I don't know anybody. I don't even know. How do you help people step out of that comfort zone?
Yeah, I think a few things to think about in doing that is try to find something that aligns with your passion. That helps. If you can find a way to volunteer that gets you excited, whether that's around food or whether that's manual labor or whatever. If you have a group of friends that you trust or feel comfortable with, do it with them. It'll help take some of that kind of social anxiety of like, I don't know where I'm going or who I'm going with. It kind of helps break that down. It also gives you a shared experience to talk about later and kind of process, and maybe that becomes a routine. I think also is just be realistic. Nobody's looking for you to save the world. And so don't feel you have to go out there and, be Gandhi or Mother Teresa. Go out and do what you're able as you're able. And so if that's 30 minutes, if that's an hour, whatever that time frame for you is, kind of understand and kind of set that in your mind of what that is and do that. And then be done. Don't feel like you have to go in and commit, an 8-hour shift of volunteering in order for it to be meaningful or impactful.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I heard a speaker, Dr. Kent Millard, say, and it was around this time, and it was probably 20 years ago. And someone asked, how do I work through this depression? I feel super depressed. And his answer was, go out and help someone else.
Yep.
And I guarantee you will feel better. Go out and help someone else. And that's hard to do when you feel depressed, because you're like, I'm barely getting a shower. I'm barely getting out of bed.
Yep.
And so I think this is one of those kind of, you're really hanging in on that mantra that if I help someone else, this will help me at the same time. It's like double bang for your buck, and kind of talking yourself through it, saying, I know this will be helpful, even though part of me might not want to do it or doesn't feel like doing it.
Yeah. I think John Maxwell in his leadership series, I think one of the things he talks about is how he tries to intentionally create value in someone else's life. And so even if going out and signing up to volunteer somewhere feels like a big step for you, that may be huge. I think even you can break it down into something smaller and say, okay, like, how can I try to offer some value into someone else's life? And so I try to do this in fun little ways throughout my day, where if I go to the grocery store, I try to interact with the cashier at a real personal level. Try to, hopefully I can see their name tag and I can use their name, right? When you use someone's name, who's a stranger, it automatically, it is shown by science, it automatically improves, starts kicking off those positive endorphins because you're seen, like you feel seen. And so even simple things like that, of interacting with a cashier or a waitress or waiter or someone who's taking your order at a fast food restaurant, to try and provide some positivity in their day is a small way that you can serve or give back in a positive and affirming way in the community. That maybe you got to start there. Maybe that's the small step you can do. Be like, okay, my next interaction, right? I'm I'm gonna say hi to the person I pass on the sidewalk, as opposed to avoiding eye contact and looking away and just not saying anything. So I think there's small things that you can also do that kind of help break down that if thinking about going out and volunteering for a couple of hours is maybe a big hurdle for you, start at a smaller level.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I think now I have three things I want to say because you kept building on them. But one, I love the Kroger. I always try to use their name on the name tag, which Julie Jensen thinks is hilarious. But to me, it's like you can see their name and ask that question. I think that's a great way to, from a micro standpoint, how can you make a difference today? And it's that interaction, because I think you're right. Some people just the signing up to go volunteer at Good Samaritan Network or whatever it may be, it's just too much of a leap for some people. That micro level is really, really important. Second thing I have tried to preach and here is that I do think as human beings, we want to help others. Like, we are wired to help others. I see folks that are going through tough times that don't want a meal train or think they're a burden. I'm like, you're actually helping. If you let somebody else help you, you're helping that person too. We are wired that way. And then I was going to just comment, Kristen, really, isn't the root of all this kind of connection, the importance of connection with one another?
We 100%, we know that isolation is the number one killer. I mean, this is, as we age and go through the aging process, isolation plays a huge role in mental and physical wellness. So the more we can have even these micro, I love how you said that, Patrick, these micro moments of connection, because that's what it is. It's a micro moment of connection. Your nervous system will register that. And it will actually, there's been brain scans of the brain, and what it does through MRIs, it shows the nervous system resetting itself. It shows the nervous system coming back to safety and a felt sense of safety in the body, to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be recognized. But we have to do that. A choice we make is an intention we set to say, you know what, like you said, Patrick, I'm gonna notice the one person. I'm gonna set out to notice one person today in my interactions. It could even be in your car. You can look to the car next to you. I've done this before. It's my smile experiment. And I almost look so cheesy. And I'm like, hey, it's to say, I see you and you matter. And I mean it. And I'm sending them kind of, I know this sounds cheesy, but love, like to say, you matter, you're important. So that really makes a difference, connection. It's what we're neurobiologically wired for as humans.
I think sometimes we discount some of that stuff. We're like, oh, how much, doesn't make a difference. And I'm like, even if it doesn't make a significant difference, it's still worth doing. I think the other thing too, with those micro opportunities that I know that I have found value with, and find value with some people that I work with, is we're busy. And so sometimes, particularly, if you have kids, young kids, if they're involved with extracurriculars, like volunteering sometimes isn't even an option. Like, you may want to do it, but boy, it's not in the cards, man. Schedule wise, you're just like, I can't add one more thing to the list. And so I think the other thing is just be present where you are. And I think that's where also, if you can find, where do I add value? Where do I find connection? And really that's what it's about. How can I find a way to see someone who maybe otherwise would just be passed by? And I think that's a way of not just volunteering, but serving. I think about it in that way of how can you serve someone by seeing them, or by connecting them, or, hey, how's the day going? How's your holiday season going? But also, ask it with integrity. Right. So if you're going to ask it, let them be able to say, yeah, not good. And to be able to hold space for that and be like, I'm sorry to hear that, not necessarily you're going to fix it, but that you're able to receive that with a certain level of empathy, and to resonate with them and to meet them at that level for even a few moments, and to be able to wish them well and say, I hope that goes better for you. And then if I've had a couple of instances where somehow I've circled back around and seen them again, and I've been able to be like, hey, how is that going now? And kind of the light that kind of flickers in people's eyes of like, oh my gosh, they remembered that. Like, that's significant. Those type of interactions, they're rare, but they are significant.
I was going to comment too, Patrick, because as somebody with small kids and in that grind every day, one thing that I've tried to practice doing is like those coaches that are all volunteering to coach my children, to take a moment and A, thank them, but B, ask them how, in that moment, where can you serve? I can serve the person who's serving my kids. I can serve that teacher in that classroom. I can, finding little ways like that. Because to your point, I sometimes get overwhelmed with like, do I have a ton of extra time to serve? I'm not sure I do, but I can be intentional with my conversations, those that are serving my kids.
Sure. Yeah, I went to a fundraiser event last night that Noblesville Main Street was having, which was a beautiful event. And anytime I go to these, I always make sure I'm very intentional with this. The staff that always work there, I know they're getting paid. I know it's their job to be there and do that. But they do a great job of being precise, being timely. And I always make sure I pull one or two of them aside and just say, hey, thank you for your service. Thank you for helping to make this night a beautiful night. Just so they know that they're just not help that's going around and doing what they should be doing, but that the work that they're doing is actually valued to make a really good event. So I think those little ways, those little things are nice extra events. I know Good Samaritan just had a fantastic event at the fairgrounds. And I know a number of people have played a part in that. HCLA went over and engaged. And so I think there are these really great opportunities that our community has during the holiday season. Find what those are, and try to make the most of that. And don't let it overwhelm you. Don't get stressed out about it. That's you're doing it wrong. I kind of say if you're getting stressed out about volunteering, you're kind of doing it wrong. It should be fun. It should be enjoyable.
I think the other piece of this is if someone's on your heart, let's say you have someone come on your mind you haven't thought about in years, send them a note, send them a text. Hey, you are on my heart today. I have been really intentional I have to be intentional. Otherwise we can get so busy that I just don't even make time to do this. I'll pause and I'll really send this person just loving energy. And I'll send them a note just saying, you're on my heart, thinking about you, hope all is well. Or you can say, how have you been doing? And you'll be amazed at what that will do inside of you. And it's not to be like, oh, I'm going to feel better by doing this. It's more like, let me connect with this other person. And maybe you do this, set an intention this year. I challenge everybody to set an intention about connection this year to help you say, okay, I do have meaning and purpose. In these micro moments, it could be that I'm going to spend each day, I'm going to notice one person, or I'm going to send a text to one person, a couple times a week. Setting an intention helps you actually do it. I really believe that. And it's coming from a deep place of, I want to let people know I love and care about them.
Yeah. Do you have a time and place that you do that?
I do it every morning. I'm in a routine now where I get up and I do a little practice of prayer. And then I really set an intention to write. I write 10 minutes a day. And I got out of it for a while and I can feel the difference of when I'm writing and when I'm not writing. And then what comes through, it's like, oh, this person, then I pause and I'll send them a text and say, hey, just you are on my heart. And you'll be amazed at what comes back. Oh, wow. I was just thinking about you too. Or, oh, thank you for thinking of me. It's been a rough week. Or you never know what someone else is going through. And this is what we don't realize. We can get on Instagram and Facebook and all the social media, and we can put something out there, but we don't really know what's going on inside of someone's heart, their mind, their stress, what they're dealing with. And when we can hold that compassion and that kindness to say, oh, something else may be going on in their life, that changes everything for us and for them in a profound way. Do you have a practice? Do either one of you have a practice that you do?
Yeah, mine's not so routine. I try to establish routine, but my schedule just doesn't seem to allow for it. And so I try to find moments as I'm able, and I kind of have routine things that I do. But as far as when that happens time-wise, it doesn't happen. One thing I love to do is when I pull into my garage, I just sit in my car for a moment and use that as a time for mindfulness because nobody else is around. Like that's a chance for me to kind of just pause. I can kind of lower that anxiety, kind of that, that the square breathing is kind of a practice there to decompress, to transition. Because I found it was really important too for me, when I was going from, meetings or, a work mindset to transitioning to family, I needed to change that mindset. If I brought that mindset into home life, like it became chaotic. And so I needed to make sure, like, no, I need to be attuned to my family. I need to be present. I need to be aware. And I can't just, some people can walk through the door and that switches for them. That's not me. So I have to intentionally kind of take everything and unpack it and then be like, okay, time to go in and interact with my family and be present for them and be with them, not just physically there.
Yeah, I was going to comment. I walk around, obviously, I'm a millennial, so I have my phone on me all the time. And I try to keep good notes in my note about things I think of throughout the day or people that are on my mind. And then I try to every day go back to my office and write some handwritten notes. My team will tell you that I'm pretty good about that. It's kind of an old school thing, but it really does. It's good for me to write out my thoughts. But then also I think it's good for people to receive a handwritten note there too. And I was taught a long time ago in a past job by somebody the importance of, if you wake up in the middle of the night with something on your mind, or Patrick, to your point, sitting in the car before you walk in the house, make a note of it and then flush it out of your mind and know that you're going to go back to it. Don't dwell on it. Try to write it down somewhere and then move on until you can accomplish that. So I try to practice that, to somewhat put that down and then deal with it and then move on to the next thing. So I'm not just carrying it with me or trying to remember throughout the day.
Yeah.
They're powerful ways. What do you think is the number one way during this season that it could be helpful, Patrick, for people that are, emotionally going through a lot? What do you think is the number one thing that could be helpful to them?
Yeah, I think if you're feeling stress, if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling grief or heartache or the loss of someone, I think give yourself permission to feel that. It's okay to feel that. So give yourself permission to be there. If you have someone that you can share that with, I think that's always helpful to not have to sit in that mental space alone. Whether that's a trusted friend or a partner, pastor, therapist, whatever that is, find a way to share that. Because sometimes when we get those things, I know sometimes I think things, but sometimes then when I say them, I'm like, has a different impact when I hear it out loud or hear it coming out of my mouth. And so, and sometimes that's healing, and sometimes it's diffusing. So it is beneficial in a couple of ways. But I think when you're with all that's going on, or can be going on, I think give yourself permission to feel it. Don't fight it. Fighting it seems to just kind of make it worse. And so if you can recognize it and see it and give yourself space to sit in that, that's helpful. But then also try to find the things that give you joy and give you pleasure. This should be a season of joy and of light, and of beauty and of harmony. And so find what those nuggets are and pursue them. Try to be intentional with those people, those events, those sweet treats, whatever they may be. Give yourself permission to enjoy those as well. Because this is a unique season, and those things should be enjoyed. And so I think try to keep a balance kind of between those two things. And don't beat yourself up with either of those as you're experiencing that. It's okay. We can feel both of those at the same time as humans, the complexity of those emotions. And I think the way that we're able to give ourselves permission to sit there without feeling guilt or shame, we'll be better off processing them.
There's space for both, right, Kristen Boyce? I'm going to give you the last word here on this as we wrap up, but as the holidays are literally upon us, what do folks need to be thinking about, or what are some good tips going into the next 10 days in their life?
I think number one, go back to your breath. When in doubt, the breath will help you get through it, breathe through it. To Patrick's point, the more we feel, the more we heal. So that's really important. To also Patrick's point, a support system is imperative. And there's lots of grief support systems right now out there. So there's if you just type in grief support system, or maybe you're going through a divorce care, or a support group, Al-Anon, maybe there's addiction running in the family, or maybe you need support. Maybe it's going to an AA meeting, whatever that looks like, you have some support, and then you can get a sponsor where you're getting more support on top of that. Highly recommend it. I also think it can be important during this holiday season to have realistic expectations, because expectations, as Anne Lamott likes to say, are resentments waiting to happen and create a lot of disappointment. So we end up putting on are projecting onto other people our expectations of this spectacular holiday, and everyone's going to get along and we're going to have this, happy-go-lucky time. And we have to check that and come back to the moment and accept the moment as it is and unattached to the outcome. Like really set in an intention to accept the moment as it unfolds without projecting this idealistic version of the holidays that doesn't exist. And that's hard for folks, but I'm like, it really doesn't. I promise you, it doesn't exist. We're humans. There's no such thing as perfect holiday. And if you need support, 988. That is 24/7. They're trained therapists on the other end, clinicians. If you feel suicidal, if you have suicidal thoughts, if you are struggling with feeling like a burden, 988, you can call or text anytime. They're available all throughout the holidays. Do not feel bad. Do not feel like, oh, I shouldn't do that, or I'm not that bad. Any thoughts like that, please reach out to 988. It's the 911 for mental health, and you matter, you're important, and you're loved. And you may not feel like it because shame tells us a different story and writes all these stories. And the truth is you do matter. And I'm glad you're here.
Yes. Well, that is a great way to end it. Patrick Probst, thank you for joining us and bringing your expertise to the table. Kristen Boyce, as always, you are an absolute gift to this community. So thank you for speaking into this today. And Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. And we look forward to seeing you back here for a new 2025 year. We'll kick off, maybe talk about some resolutions and some goal setting in January. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you.
Yep.